Good afternoon, YouTube. This is Kaylin Stern coming at you with my regular Sunday night dinner. And I have gone ahead and pulled out the beef goulash, which I originally wanted to compare with a Polish goulash, but that was an obvious fail because of what that ration presented. But as I've said previously, I have another beef goulash, same pack year. So I am going to try to get another Polish ration that has the proper goulash and not a luncheon loaf in a can. So this is packed by Sapaco. This is late 2024, so this one was packed in late November of 24. I slid it open from the front so that I can put the trash back in here. And one of the items is stuck to the inside. This originally did have a vacuum seal, but this bag got poked somehow. There we go. And it appears that the top item got sealed literally inside the bag. So I'll take some other things out and then try to get that out later. This is the sleeve that goes with the beef goulash. Chunky peanut butter. That's a rare thing to get one of those in there. Usually it's the creamy peanut butter when you do get the peanut butter. Here it says patriotic. It says sugar cookies patriotic, whereas the one I opened up on Friday where patriotic was first. But that was an older packet. Slim Pickens accessory pack. No coffee. Standard spoon. The standard FRH flameless ration heater, which I do not use, but I save all these. This is applesauce, the unflavored. It's just your straight up applesauce, not the cinnamon. A lot of these newer retorts are more of a green, true green, as opposed to this lighter OD green. You can see the difference in the color. orange drink powder, the shaker pouch. And the strawberry jam. And this one appears to be a bit sticky, so I have to maybe a slight bit of damage on there. I had to make a little bit of a hole in the MRE bag in order to pull out this item. It is again the mini loaf. We'll see how this one held up compared to the one that I opened up on Friday. Let's see, we got Cold War Prepper in the house. James Sloan, welcome. Rico is here. Lid Lone Prepper is here. Viking Channel, welcome. Another name I haven't seen before. Egg Shorts. Spicy Tuna Rolls is here. These are designed to be used without any kind of a container because it is a container in of itself, but for video purposes, I will mix in the drinking jar. Plus, it's easier to see what the powder looks like. I do these types of drink powders first because being sugar-based, they do take a lot longer to dissolve. I'll give that another stir later. And I'm going to try something that I have been wanting to try with this other iced tea that came out of that Long Range Patrol. Since there's no coffee, It's all clumped up, so I'm going to mix that with hot water. I'm going to go ahead and take this into the kitchen to put it in the pot to start that heating up, and then I'll come back with the kettle for that. I am back. I took the kettle back into the kitchen just to get it out of my way. Gira, thanks for dropping in. This one did not provide any coffee at all. A lot of the menus in the 2024, and it might have even started earlier than that, are just not providing coffee. Which is a real letdown because coffee is a good source of energy for the person in the field. It's a morale booster. And if you are out where it's chilly, you might need that little extra pick-me-up. So you get the Lighthouse rear roll, matches, the white tip. I have no idea what the tip colors mean. The peppermint gum, a wet wipe, and a super tiny packet of salt that probably doesn't even have half a gram of salt in it. This type of pouch is also meant to be you literally tear this off like I'm about to do. It is intended where you literally suck it out of the pouch. So it's a little bit looser consistency than your standard applesauce. Viper is here. Curtis Knight is here. Booger Button is here. Josh is here. DeCarlos Perry is here. Andre is here. No, I do not have a Russian ration. I haven't had any Russian rations for quite a bit of time. There are some that I would love to get a hold of. But that will have to wait for another day. I've opened up the sugar cookies. These seem to be a little bit more intact than the ones I opened up on Friday. And I like seeing that. Good for those coming in late. This is a 2024 pack, US MRE beef goulash. These patriotic sugar cookies have had a bit of a design change over the years, a couple of shapes. Were redone. The oxygen absorber that was in that bread. Well, Dave, no doubt, I bet he's growing up. He probably went through the kind of growth spurt my brother, who was 4 years behind me, did. For a long time, we thought he would be even shorter than me. But he shot up in a hurry. there a little bit of stuff off the top, but this is what the inside of this new bread looks like. And this one just had a little bit of skin come off the top. See, that is the bottom. As a top, this little bit came off, but I'm okay with that. I'm going to do a little something different here. I'm kneading the peanut butter. When you get the chunky peanut butter, you definitely need to have a slightly bigger hole to squeeze it out of, because you're dealing with the little bits of peanut that are in there. I put the squeeze on the jam packet, but it doesn't seem to be poked all the way through, so I'm happy about that. I'm saving a little bit of the peanut butter and the jam for the sugar cookies. I'm going to go get the goulash and I'll be right back. I am back. I use this. It's a dome lid that comes with my regular cookware that I use here at home. This makes it easier to carry something that I've just taken out of boiling water. And I have a paper towel that I'm drying it off with. Tear notch on these goes this way, unlike the tear notch from the jalapeno beef patty, which goes this way. So I like to shake it so all the food gets knocked down, so when I go to pull it across, I'm not going to have one heck of a mess. Yep. It's very true on that. This particular goulash has bits of carrot. There is a good sized chunk of beef right there. It looks like it has rice in it. It's a tomato-based sauce. The sauce definitely has more of a flavor than a lot of the other entrees that you get in your standard US MREs. The veggies are quite soft, so is the rice. The meat is minimally processed. It's not like ground beef, but I would say it's probably, it reminds me kind of like the Salisbury steak kind of texture. But you can definitely pick up the meat fibers. But this has a really good flavor to it. I'm more partial to the Polish goulash, but I will take this menu any day. Prep for it is here. Multi-magnum here. Thanks for dropping it. And no coffee in this one, but that long range patrol, that experimental menu that I did a few months, had 2 of the Blue Label instant iced teas. And I decided to do the one that I did not use with that one. I decided to make it hot. A nice, moderately sweet, hot lemon tea. There's bits of tomato in here. Pepper for the edges is here. Jumar, this is a 2024 production, US MRE. This is menu 22, beef goulash. Out of the standard US MRE lineup, this is one of my favorite menus. And I like that it is paired with this new bread instead of something like a wheat snack bread. Although the rice and the veggies in here are quite soft, the flavor is there. The meat is not dry, and I do like it when the meat in a ration is not dry. Yeah, I try to make it look decent for the camera. I'm no professional at this by any stretch of the imagination. I just enjoy it. I'm going to give my orange drink another stir. Because there's still a lot of the powder down at the bottom. I decided to only use half of the bread for the peanut butter and jam. So I can do this. Yeah, that would be correct for certain situations. So what the military offers up to those soldiers who need a lot more calories, especially for high stress situations, high levels of activity, there is a supplement called a modular operational ration enhancement. And so the soldier would get the standard MRE plus one of these packs, and that would supply the extra calories and nutrients and mainly energy to be able to fuel all that extra activity. There are these more packets, they're commonly known as mores. There is a set for cold weather to be used with the meal cold weather that comes in the white bag, and warm weather to be used with either the first strike ration or your standard MRE like this, or it can be paired with a halal MRE, and I do have a few of those. They're actually certified halal, and you get some entrees in there that you don't get in any other US MRE. You may get an entree like it in foreign rations, but in a typical US MRE you will not get some of the entrees that you would find in the halal certified MREs. Carcom, welcome. Good to see you back again. I hope you enjoy this one. This past Friday for U.S. Independence Day, I did a special stream where I opened up the jalapeno beef patty, and I made a few changes to what I would have for the meal. I had a loose pack of these patriotic sugar cookies. That menu did not have what you would call a dessert. It had a candy. It had the peanut M&Ms. It had this same bread, but it pretty much fell apart. So I brought in 2 wheat snack breads to put my jalapeno beef patty on. Instead of the orange drink that was in that one, I mixed up an instant iced tea. That one did have coffee in it, but I also got ketchup and mustard from my kitchen, and I substituted a cheese spread with jalapenos for the bacon cheese spread that came in that MRE. For 2 reasons. 1, I wanted more of the jalapeno on there, and 2, since I do not eat pork, that bacon cheese spread will eventually go to someone else. But that one was more of a celebratory thing. Plus, I had a poll on my channel for which one, either the beef patty or the barbecue beef, and the beef patty MRE won. Yeah, I don't know why coffee has been excluded in the more recent MREs. I'm not, I have no idea what the reasoning is behind that. And I bet there are a lot of complaints from those soldiers in the field who feel like they need to have coffee with their meal. That would probably depend on the year. This this one only had the pack date on there, no stamp, no letter. So a lot of them are probably going to that more generic, less specified accessory packet. Yeah, no special labels other than for the MCW or the First Strike ration. Yeah, some of these accessory packs you don't get matches. And some you do. It's just like the coffee. Some people like the orange drink powder, some don't. I prefer that over the fruit punch and the red tropical punch. Those are my least favorite of all the U.S. ration drinks. And this applesauce, it contains an ingredient called maltodextrin. It's a carbohydrate. It's supposed to increase energy, and according to that packet, enhance performance. A lot of processed foods include it, not just military ration components. There might be some people who could be sensitive to it. It's just like MSG. There are people who cannot eat that ingredient because of an allergy. so they try to avoid it. That's where reading the labels comes in. Personally, I'm not bothered by it, but again, I don't eat a whole lot of it. Yeah, I eat the ramen packets that usually has it in it, but it's not like I'm eating those all the time. This new bread, it's got a lot better flavor and texture than the wheat snack bread. There is another flatbread that may look similar to this, but it is not pre-sliced like this is. And I would prefer that over any of the snack breads. I don't know why they call them snack breads. And for those that have just come in, this is a 2024 pack US MRE Menu 22 beef goulash. This one did not come with a hot drink, but I have an instant lemon tea that came out of the experimental long-range patrol ration I did a few months ago. I made it as a hot tea this time. These are patriotic sugar cookies. Their designs have changed since the production of the ones that I opened up on Friday during my holiday special dinner stream. But they're the same flavor. Those are also more broken up than these are. This is supposed to be the hand of the Statue of Liberty holding the torch. Got a flag. And the Liberty Bell, which the previous version did not have. There's a star, which the previous version may have had a different design of. And then there's supposed to be Uncle Sam's hat, which is, this is the top Yeah, this is the top part of what will be Uncle Sam's hat. But other than that, they're your standard sugar cookie recipe. Waffles is here. Thanks for dropping in. Tim Riley is here. There's one thing you could do with these cookies. Dip them in the applesauce. Yeah, I'd say this bread actually works pretty well with this goulash. And it works equally as well with the peanut butter and jam or jelly. That's okay. Everybody has to do things like leave their device. Um, I have even had to do that in the middle of a stream. But this is the type of goulash that I was hoping to find last Sunday, from that Polish ration, but I didn't get the correct Polish ration, but I know the correct ones are out there. It's a matter of trying to get a hold of it and get it here without any delivery issues. Yeah, there have been rations that, especially in the older rations, like that Ration Cold Weather, the cocoa mix, I thought was going to be pretty decent, but it had a funky taste to it. And later on, I did open up the other two cocoa mixes from that same pack date, just off camera, and they both smelled just as bad. One was even chunked up. But the other orange drink powder, that one was absolutely perfect. I mixed that one up and just drank it because I wanted to. I saw that it was perfect when I opened it up, and I just went ahead and mixed it up. Those bars in that ration, the oatmeal cookie bars, tasted just like the oatmeal cookies, had a slight hint of cinnamon. Those are perfect. But the granola bars that are paired with them, not so much. And the coffee from that MC, that Ration Cold Weather, that's one of those red packet taster choice that are known to easily go bad, and that one did. And the one orange drink powder that was in there, that looked like the instant tea powder. It smelled nothing like what it was supposed to. So, because that one had two instant tea powders in it, I went ahead and mixed one of those up for the first meal, and then the second meal, I mixed up the other one as a hot tea, just like I did with this one. And as a hot tea, it brings out the lemon flavor just a little bit more. But I have also had newer rations, like after 2000, that had gone to crap. And I've had some from the 80s that were absolutely perfect. It depends on how they were cared for, how they were stored over time, as well as the quality of the food, the quality of the packaging. Like that Lipton instant cup of soup. That was a commercial label instant cup of soup packet inside of a packet that is like this, but only it was white. That perfectly preserved that instant cup of soup. And then the chicken a la king entree. That was freeze dried, done by Oregon Freeze Dry, which we know as Mountain House. But as I showed in that granola, the apple cinnamon granola packet, it still says Oregon Freeze Dry. In fact, I made that for my breakfast yesterday morning. Yesterday, for Muslims and Jews, is a day of Ashura, and a lot of people like to fast on that day. So I decided I'm going to go ahead and have that granola as part of my before first light breakfast. And having never had the Mountain House apple cinnamon granola, it's equally as good as the blueberry, although not quite as heavy on the fruit flavor. But the apple pieces are pretty nice and big. So that apple cinnamon granola is a good one. I just thought it was odd that it would be in an MRE menu that could be considered a lunch or dinner. This tray, I decided to get it because it's green. Green's my favorite color. And I wanted an alternative tray to my 1983 buttercream colored Tupperware tray. So another YouTuber who used to do reviews, he was up in Canada, he had a tray exactly like this. I like the look of it. It's perfect for rations that have an average size, or an 8 ounce, 8 US ounce, 9 ounce entree, and several other components. My Tupperware tray has a larger area, and I use that for when I have large entrees like you would get from a freeze-dried ration, and not a whole lot of other side items. So when I did the second video for the 1996 Ration Cold Weather, I used that Tupperware tray. So I alternate between this tray and that one. Other reviewers like to use a different style of tray. One that is either mil-spec from a soldier's mess, or maybe a tray that used to be aboard a ship. Others may like to use a different style of metal tray or plastic tray. Just make the presentation look a little all their own. and others may use a military mess kit. Either a U.S. military mess kit or a mess kit from another country. Several years ago, I did a trade with Sticky Fingers 749, who I won my first MRE off of in a giveaway he had on his channel. He collects mess kits, and I had 2 Polish Scout mess kits, so I sent him one. And then he sent me what's called a heater meal. And although that particular one got damaged in transit and had been around a while, it was still cool to check that out. I have had 1 or 2 more of the heater meals since then, and they are still in production, I believe. And I think you can buy them by the case off of different websites, maybe Amazon. Thanks for dropping in, John. Hope to see you another time. But he hasn't made any videos for quite some time, so I hope things are going well for him. But I hope to do some more trading in the near future, but it's not always possible when I want to do it. I either end up eating that particular ration I want to trade off, or I just don't have the money to pay for the postage. I just took another bite of my peanut butter and jam on this much better bread. Raggy, welcome. Thanks for dropping in. 2024 pack US MRE menu 22. One of my favorite menus of the standard MRE lineup. And what I mean by standard is this meal ready to eat. That's what MRE stands for. The other ration lineups will be the 24-hour first strike ration, and I do have one of those. I've opened up a couple of those in the past. Then there is the meal cold weather, which is the white bag cold climate ration. It's a single meal ration, as opposed to the ration cold weather, which was a 24-hour ration that came in 2 bags. Then there is the halal certified US MRE. It comes in similar packaging to this, but this is a clear like this with the black writing on it, as opposed to this tan. And then a company called La Briute is doing kosher certified rations. They replaced my own meals. I have reviewed both. Scotch eggs is something I am not familiar with. I'm a Polska. I wouldn't know anything about Scottish cuisine. I have never had any that was specifically Scottish. Yeah, speaking of outdoor boys, they have stopped producing content. I don't know what's all going on. But I used to enjoy their videos. Yeah, Viper, I enjoy trying new things. I have a South Korean freeze-dried entree that's in a red pouch. I think that's a civilian as opposed to the military, which would be in a green pouch. I have that as a standalone item. There's no English on there whatsoever, and because it's shiny, I don't know if I could even get Google Translate to attempt to translate it. But that was sent to me in a box of goodies by one of the other Ration community members. I'm giving this another stir because there's still stuff at the bottom of my drinking jar. I think that'll do for now. Yeah, Mike is good people. He has opened up some of the newer MCW menus that come in your standard or with the standard Mountain House retail bag. It's the light blue colored Pro Pack. I think the only reason why they call it Pro Pack is they cut down the bag size and vacuum seal it completely. I guess to make it more compact for fitting inside of a person's pack. Slumdog, that ham slice was probably either from the early 1980s, and then the MCI or Meal Combat Individual that had items in cans that had a ham in it that probably looked somewhat like the beef luncheon meat that I had in the Polish ration last week, that was labeled English goulash. But that looked nothing like this goulash that I just finished off. Dunking another one of the sugar cookies in applesauce. I have opened a couple cans from that era of the MCI, but they're just loose cans that I acquired off of a ration site that went out of business, unfortunately. But it was a B2 unit. It had the round crackers and a cocoa powder. The crackers were absolutely perfect in texture and taste and crunch. The cocoa powder was so much better than the one that came out of the Ration cold weather. Perfect flavor. I really enjoyed drinking that one. And then I had a bread can that would have been issued separate from the main ration. Unfortunately, that bread was not edible, but it was still neat to look at it, to see what the soldiers back in that time period up until 1980 and 81, when the brown bag MREs first came into existence. So even though I could not eat that bread, I still enjoyed at least looking at it. There's one older MRE menu that I would love to get, and that would be the later version of the beef frankfurters. There are two different versions of those hot dogs. The first version was more like, according to other reviewers, the texture and flavor of a Vienna sausage. Whereas the newer version was closer to that of the hot dog in taste and texture. So if I can get a hold of one of those that was the better, the newer version, that was in very good condition, I think it would be an awesome treat to check one of those out. My step-grandfather served in the Army infantry during World War II, so he went to Germany. And then in the Vietnam War, he went into the Air Force. So after World War II, he got out of the Army. He got a Purple Heart for injuries he took during World War II. But then he went back into the Air Force, or he went into the Air Force and was deployed during the Vietnam War. He went to Vietnam, and I think he may have taken some injuries there. And as a result of that, ended his military career. So he saw action in both of those, first Army, then Air Force. But because of that service, he and my maternal grandmother both got to get their health care from the medical staff at the Office Air Base in Omaha. Plus, they could shop at the commissary or PX. And I got to go on one of those shopping trips. That's the only time I had ever been on a military base. So we went to the PX. This is probably maybe early 80s, maybe late 70s, early 80s. We happened to be in Omaha visiting them, and they wanted to go to the PX, and we got to come along. Then after my step grandpa died, she was still going to Offutt for her medical care until she moved in with my parents after she sold the house. They had extra rooms that they used to rent to. They could have 3 tenants at a time, but after they stopped taking tenants, and whenever we would visit, we would sleep in those upstairs apartments. Basically, bedrooms and then a shared bathroom. Kind of like what they used to call a rooming house, where you would just rent the room and all the tenants shared a bathroom. It was a very old house, but with her age, she's getting older, her health was starting to decline. It was too much for her to take care of all by herself. She did not want to go into a nursing home like her husband did. His step-grandpa was her second husband. Her first husband died before I was born. So I never got to know him. But he went into a nursing home because of the Alzheimer's had kicked in, and he needed the 24/7 care that Grandma could not give him. And he went into a facility that caters to military vets. So he got very good care there. We visited a few times. And we got to take him out for a meal on one of his better days. And of course, then the Alzheimer's really kicked in, and you just can't get better from that. I saw it firsthand with one of my former clients. Yeah, my brother's high school buddies in Arkansas, some of them went into the Navy. And they tried to get him to join the Navy, but he just didn't want to do it, although he has mad respect for those who did. He just chose another way of life. But my late dad never served, but he had mad respect for those who did. And when he died in November 2008, it happens to be on Veterans Day. And he really hoped that was the day that he would leave this existence. There's the Mother Earth Garden Club in the house. Thanks for dropping in. Yeah. One of my cousins on my dad's side went into the Air Force in the 90s. And she was one of the few women who tested to get a job as a jet mechanic. And on the day she took the test, she scored higher than most of the men. So she got to do that for all the time that she was in. She never went out of the country. She stayed at the Eglin Air Base working on the jets. Put some of the strawberry jam on one of the cookies. She got the aptitude for mechanics because that's what she was interested in as a kid. She wanted to learn how engines worked, so she learned. And when she got decent enough at it, she started fixing up the family's vehicles. You know, that gave her some practice and some real world experience, and that helped her probably with taking that test for jet mechanic, even though jets have much more complicated engines, but principles are pretty much the same. Each part has to be in its proper place. It has to be free of damage and defects, correct lubrication and fluids and all that stuff. All the moving parts have to move the way they're intended to move. And after she got out of the Air Force, although I never found out exactly what she got into as far as a civilian job, I'm pretty sure it involved mechanics of some kind because she just enjoyed it. Now, some of those lesser known events are just not talked about. In fact, this is the first time I heard of Alaska being involved. peanut butter on there. Oh, cool. It probably will not be the same one that recently dumped a load elsewhere. A little peanut butter and jelly on the cookie. Yeah, I used to hear some of the stories from my step grandpa about what he experienced when he saw action in both World War II and Vietnam. Of course, what he experienced was only later to be called PTSD. So he had some mental health issues as a result of that. But it was not all that often that he would have something like that. There were just certain things, or maybe a word, that could be a triggering thing, or sometimes just a thought in his head. Only certain things he would openly talk about. But even that, you know, having that personal history that you don't get in any book, that's just as valuable as any other historical info you could get a hold of. Wow, that's a good thing that someone had a good eye to see his eyes move. No doubt that was a relief for not just him, but for the family. Avon. Yeah, these rations do pack the protein. But I'm going to get, let's see, this. The entree alone in here has 17 grams of protein. You get additional protein from the peanut butter. The peanut butter has 7 grams. And you get the carbs. You get fats in there as well. Depending on the menu, you may get more or less protein from the entree. Other items that have protein in there could be included, like meat sticks or a protein shake. There's even chocolate pudding that has added protein in it. You'll find that in some menus. The vegetarian menus usually have that soy protein in it, as well as nuts and peanut butter or a protein shake, something like that. Yeah, that would, no doubt that had to be a real bummer. And then when you become blind as an adult, it will take a lot harder, to get used to doing things differently. You get these memories in your head of colors and shapes. But if you're born totally or nearly totally blind, then if that's all you know, that's all you know. Now, one of my best friends in high school could see light and some shadow movement, maybe a slight hint of color, but she had type 1 diabetes, and so that vision eventually went away. But when she first got diagnosed with diabetes, she did not get great care in the hospital from one of the nurses, who basically put an orange and a syringe on her bed table and just said, practice, not showing her how to do it. So she just ate the orange and ignored the syringe. There's Chosuk in the house. Thanks for dropping in. So it took someone else to show her how to do it, but when you are totally blind, you cannot see to draw insulin from the vial. So she got one of the first insulin injection pens that uses a pre-filled cartridge, and you use a clicker mechanism to transfer a specific amount of the insulin from the cartridge into the syringe. And then you inject it that way. That allowed her to do that by herself without having to have someone give her the shots 2 to 3 times a day. You know, she was a substitute music teacher in local school districts. She taught private lessons in her apartment. But because of other health issues she had, that complicated her diabetes management. And she ended up going into a diabetic coma. Oh, Chosa, is this one of your favorites? This is definitely one of my favorite menus from the standard lineup. And I'm happy that this 2024 pack has the new bread in it instead of that excessively boring snack bread. And this time, the pre-sliced bread opened up like it was supposed to without completely exploding in my hands. Wow. If the walls of that ship could talk. No doubt there would be some stories there. Wow, that would be an awesome thing to have. Especially, you know, with his name being in it. We have my step-grandfather are his medals. I don't know if my grandmother held on to any of the uniforms that he might have come home with. I don't know if he ever kept any of his service weapons or if he turned them in or what. And all I know is we have his medals. Oh wow, Viper, that's cool that you're able to get that kind of stuff found. It's hard to do that these days. On my mom's side, we do have documents from the Yuzhinka family history, and that would include my grandmother's marriage to both husbands. You know, all of their documents, like birth certificates if they had any, yeah, marriage certificates. Yeah, the second husband, his military documents, death certificates, you know, anything like that. And that book covers the Yuzhinka family history between the early 1800s. You know, my direct ancestors came here in 1849, up into 1983, when we had the only Yuzhinka reunion, and the organizers of it self-published that history book, which is as thick as an old school phone book. Or you can think of it as thick as the older Betty Crocker cookbooks that were in the 3-ring binders. Or maybe, yeah, I squished this to about the thickness of that family history book. Yeah, we got the ancestral immigration papers in there. We got pictures. And we were all putting this together before computers. You know, before there was the internet. Now, there are computers, but they're not connected beyond the local area network within the building, if they're even connected to anything at all besides a printer. So this is all done by a snail mail. There was some faxing. If someone had access to a fax machine, go to a print shop or a copy shop or maybe a library, and you could fax to another location that had a fax machine. So there's some of that. And my mom was one of those who was helping to put all that stuff together. And then we were helping her assemble all those materials, sorting the documents by person. And then we would send in our batch to one of the main organizers, who would then get these batches from others who were putting together these packets that people could send their individual information to one of those who are putting all the stuff together. And then the organizers would then arrange all that and create the book that a print shop printed. The number of copies that was pre-ordered. So I personally do not have one. Each of my sisters has one. I may get the copy that my mom has after she passes, because I would like to have one. But yeah, it was so much fun working on that project. Mahmoud. Guten Morgen. That's about, I don't know a whole bunch more Deutsch than that, but I could also say Assalamu alaikum. But the Yajinka history is something I am very proud of. And it was fun attending that reunion. It would have been nice if there were more of those, but at least we had that one back in '83, and we literally took over the town of Ashton, Nebraska. At that time, it had a population of around 200, and there were about 400 of us there that came in from out of town. So it was a 3-day nonstop Polish party. Wow, that's a real bummer. One of my friends from a school in Nebraska I attended was raised by her grandparents because of some issues that she dealt with. But she did very well for herself after that, once she got out of high school. But then she went into the dentist to have some oral surgery. And let's just say someone screwed things up and she never left that place alive. Yep, when one of my cousins on my mom's side got married, it was another one of those 3-day nonstop Polish parties. And although the man she married was not Polish, we all treated him like he was any other part of the clan. And he enjoyed the kind of celebrating. I think that's all I'm going to get out of that peanut butter. Throw a little more jam on that piece. Yep, this wedding celebration, it pretty much was a 3-day nonstop party. I'm going to do something else just to be a little different. I put the rest of that apple jam into the applesauce, or a strawberry jam, that is. Strawberry apple flavor works. Yeah, my family just has not been into any kind of partying like that. A lot of the people that we knew from back in the 80s and 90s that are my parents' age and my grandparents' age, they're pretty much gone. Although just by I know luck or coincidence, my mom added her maiden name to her name on Facebook to kind of distinguish herself from any other Cindy strains. And I got curious to see how many other Yajinkas there were, and I found as Cindy Yajinka. So I sent the profile to my mom to see if maybe they might be related. Sure enough, they are distant cousins. So I don't know if my mom knew of her back in the 80s, or she was one of those people who was not able to come to the 1983 reunion, but they have connected on Facebook, and so I have connected with this other Cindy Yajinka. It's one of the few connections to that family that I have available. My other closer relatives from my mom's side of the family have dwindled down to only a few left. My cousin, whose wedding celebration I mentioned, she lost her brother when he was only in his 20s. Never did find out what actually caused his death. It was just one of those freak things. Yeah, he was otherwise a healthy young man. But their mother, their father died, and then their mother died. Still have another cousin on my mom's side who we connect with on Facebook, and then her kids and grandkids. So they're the few other closer relatives on my mom's side that we have left, and we are able to communicate with. We do so on Facebook. And being online is a lot easier for my mom to do that, because trying to talk on the phone with hearing aids is not always easy. And plus, batteries in her hearing aids die so fast, she's changing them almost like every other day. So if she can do more online communicating, then that allows her hearing aid batteries to last just a little bit longer. Yeah, my mom was an only child. After her mother remarried, yeah, she did not have any more kids. But she had the cousins who used to live in the area, because they grew up in a Polish neighborhood in Omaha. In fact, there are two cousins who own Polish delis. So each cousin has his own deli, so they have kind of a friendly competition between each other. One's on one side of Omaha, the other's in a different part of Omaha, so you got your choice of where you want to go to get your kielbasa or your kichka or one of the other Polish meats. I think I'm just going to drop the rest of these cookie pieces into what's left of the applesauce, because they're just tiny pieces basically. Because why not? Sorry about that. I had to deal with a little bit of trash. Yep, we like to keep it family friendly around here. Anyway, back to my cookies and applesauce. And I'll take the time to remind those who are newer to my channel, I do this every Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern U.S. or 7 p.m. U.S. Central Time. That's 8 p.m. Eastern. Probably like 1 or 2 or 3 a.m. in Europe, depending on the time zone. But the last Sunday of this month, the 27th, I will not go live because I will be at Lake Icaria, which is my late dad's favorite lake. It's a man-made lake it was probably called the Icaria State Park or County Park. It could have had another name when my late dad grew up in the area. So he knew that area well before the lake was added. Probably about 15 or so years ago, I think, the county started putting memorial benches around the lake, and you could pay the county parks department a certain amount of money to have a loved one's name put on a bench. And so a couple of years after my dad died, that was 2010 or so, she did this. My mom paid the county this fee to have my dad's name put on one of those benches. Oh yeah, in fact, speaking of booze, my cousin's wedding, the bartender would, let's say if I went to the bar, I wanted a root beer, and I'm expecting to get straight up root beer because I'm not, I was not even 18 yet. And I get the root beer, I'm drinking, this tastes different, so I had someone else taste it. But that bartender was putting rum in the root beer, even for the kids. Yeah, my maternal grandmother worked in a bar at one time in her life. And so when we were kids, we were visiting, we would go hang out in the bar and play pool. And although we were not regulars, like some of the adults would go there, the fact that we were the bartender's grandkids, some of the regular guys would buy us sodas. But we would play pool against the regulars as well as against each other. Because he was in a Polish neighborhood, they would play polkas. And of course, my Grandma's house, she would play polkas. In fact, when we had a surprise 25th anniversary party for my parents, I had gotten a hold of some polkas, and because cassettes were still widely used, we made mixtapes of polkas and some of my dad's favorite songs. Throw in some waltzes. So we probably had about, like 2 or 3 of these mixtapes that I and one of my sisters had put together. It was just easier to play one tape that had all of our choices on it instead of trying to go from one to another. Although that one was not a legit 3-day nonstop party, it was still a pretty good party. Yeah, my mom probably knew of them if they ever played in or around Omaha or Loop City, or they had, if their music was commercially available or you could go buy it, or you would listen to it on the polka radio shows. One of the Omaha radio stations, I think, still has a polka show. Another one had what was called the Sunday Morning Czech Party. Czech as in the Czech, what used to be known as Czechoslovakia, or Czech Republic as it is known today. But that music is very similar to Polish. So my mom used to listen to that. And then there was a Big Joe's Polka show that was on one of the local TV stations in Omaha. And you can find videos on YouTube. And my mom gets Facebook links that she finds of individual songs that she'll watch. Yeah, we used to, when we visited my grandmother, we used to go to some of these dances that they would have either at her bar that she worked at or at another place, just depending on the time of year and if it, live band. It was a lot easier to do that when we actually lived in Nebraska, in the town of Fremont, than different times we lived here in Iowa. But Big Joe was, and still is one of my mom's favorites. The one house that my mom lived in as a kid, they didn't have running water probably till she was at least school age. And I don't think they had a TV until she was like 11 or so. She's 80 now. She'll be 81 in October. So she was just born a couple of years after, just a few years after my dad. She got married at 17, which was probably the norm back then in the so they got married in 61. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that name, but Kosmicki, or Kosmicki as most people would say, I would prefer the correct Polish pronunciation of Kosmicki. Just like I say Jarzynka instead of Jarzynka. And Kwiatkowski, or some would say Kwiatkowski, but I tend to favor the correct Polish pronunciation. I don't know, I just do. But any variation of Jarzynka was on that big family tree poster that was in the town hall where we had the reunion at. There are 13 different variations of the name Jarzynka. And with about 400 of us there, probably would have been maybe well over 400 had everybody showed up who was invited or who was able to make it. We even had some come down from British Columbia and Canada. And some came from Colorado. Although most were from various parts of Nebraska, and nearby states. But to have some from British Columbia, we thought that was pretty darn neat that those people came from that far away to a little Ashton, Nebraska. But with the hotel rooms that we all took over, we stayed in a place in Loop City, which is another town nearby that has a high Polish population, because there was none to be had in Ashton. Such a small town really didn't have much for lodging. So people either got hotel rooms in surrounding towns or They stayed with others who lived in the area. Some probably camped. But we had so much fun. Ashton still does a Polish festival every year, and my mom, a few years ago when she watched the video, she showed it to me. She recognized some of the people that were shown in that video. I think it was like 2000, I think it was like 22 was the one that I saw, where she recognized some of the faces that she remembered from that 1983 reunion, and that was pretty darn cool. And speaking of festivals, my mosque wants to hold another International Food Day like we did last year, where I did pierogi and salata miseria. Of course, I cheated with the pierogi. I bought a couple of the big bags of the Mrs. T's pierogies and cooked them there, and then I cut them in half. So the idea was to have it during the last week in July, but I told the woman who was currently coordinating this, I said, well, that will be at the time that I'm gone. I'm leaving the 27th and coming back August 1st. But she does want me to participate. But I cooked a pierogi in the mosque kitchen because there's no way I could do that in my little kitchen here and then have to transport it by bus. So no one else was cooking anything there on site, so it was easy for me to do that. Well, my late dad was raised Methodist, but he became a Catholic so that he could marry my mother. But he would still attend a Methodist church once in a while. But everybody was pretty much okay with that. In fact, my dad's sister also became a Catholic. Just by her personal choice to do that. But there was no real conflict or anything like that. certain relatives and in-laws gave me more crap about becoming a Muslim than what my late dad got when he decided to become a Catholic. But once I told him that you can't make up these generalizations without knowing the facts, like assuming that because chose to become a Muslim that I was already in an abusive relationship, and I said, well, if I'm in a relationship with, who am I in a relationship with? No one told me about it. I didn't know there was a relationship going on. There must be something going on without my being present. But I actually caught more heat from a bus driver for saying stupid things than any relatives or in-laws. And so I let her know in a firm but respectful voice that you just can't say stupid stuff like that, especially in a loud voice in front of a bus full of passengers. I chose not to report that bus driver to a supervisor because I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt and hope that she would not do that again. She never did apologize, but she never said any more nasty comments, like saying, I shame myself for covering myself up, or that all Muslim women get hot acid thrown on them for the tinnitus of screw-ups. Yeah, just stupid stuff like that that's uncalled for, and I let her know about it. If that behavior would have continued, then I obviously would have reported it, but I didn't feel the need to at that moment, and I never had to do that again. And in fact, now several bus drivers are, we have several Muslims as bus drivers, and one of them attends my mosque. And if I'm there way past time to catch a bus, and if he's there, he give me a ride home. Of course, other people tease him about bringing a bus into the mosque parking lot. He said, nope, that's not going to happen. The lot isn't that big. Yep, they definitely were. Whereas nowadays, if my niece, who goes to a Catholic church, not all the time, but at least 2 or 3 times a month, if she were to marry someone who's non-Catholic, she would not be prevented from doing so. Not like it was back when my parents got married. Yeah, like I said, my mom is 80. In October, she'll be 81. My dad would have turned 84 next month. Because he was born in 41. In one of my silver coin hunts, I specifically sought out a dollar coin from 1941. And I may have one from my mom's birth year. But all those are buried somewhere in this apartment. Obviously, I'm not going to say where they're at. But I have a 1919 Polish note that is literally big. It's 5 inches by 8 inches. Well, Kuzo, thanks for dropping in. And also thanks for that super chat. That's so much appreciated. For those that are not familiar with super chats, what that is, it's a bit of money that the viewer kicks in, and that helps support my channel. Cute sticker there. So for those new to the YouTube live chats, you have seen a super chat, and that's what that looks like, or a super sticker. That can be as low as $1. I've seen them up to 50 of the donor's currency, like Australian dollars, or could be euros, but or pesos if it's from Mexico. Yeah, I have seen. I think I've seen a couple in a couple other chats. I've seen them as high as $100 or whatever the currency. But yeah, I'm not one who begs for things like that, but whenever someone chooses to do that, or if they want to take advantage of a channel membership, in my description I have a Patreon link. I don't actively plug it, I just leave it there. I leave that totally up to the viewer to decide whether they want to or not. But whatever comes in goes back into the channel. What I get from my YouTube ad revenue goes back into the channel, either to buy rations or to buy a piece of gear that I either want to test, try out, or something that might help my video shooting or whatever. Like the phone mount that I'm currently using, when my old one decided to stop working out so well, just not hold position. Then I used a part of one of my periodic Google payments to buy the phone mount that I'm currently using, which is much more stable. It has a better clamp system. It has a wider jaw that can accommodate bigger and heavier phones. It has an additional adjustment point that is a lot easier to use than the old one. I still have the old phone mount. And in fact, I used it when I shot the video of that broom and dustpan that I can break down for travel, or if I want to have shorter handles. But the plastic that covers that ball joint that the jaw pivots on, some of the old super glue repairs are starting to fail. So I'll probably end up ditching it, since it's just no longer useful. And this one that I'm currently using, it's beefier, it's a lot more stable. And I'm glad that I made the upgrade. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and call this one done anyway, because all I have left are my drinks. But next week, I'm not sure what I'll come up with. I've shifted a few of my rations around. So got 2 Sundays left in this month that I'll be live. I might dig into another one of my 24-hour rations, and I can do 2 videos back to back on it, like I've done before with my 24-hour rations. I have a vegetarian ORP, or Operational Ration Pack, from the UK. I have a First Strike ration, a U.S. First Strike ration, and I have a civilian 24-hour ration made by MRE Star. So I may dig into one of those to finish out July, and then on August 3rd will be my next stream after I get back from the lake. So I will I could either dig into one of my halal MREs. I have some Canadian IMPs. I have a civilian ration that's in a silver bag, like a Mylar bag. And I have more of the K-Say 2022 pack MREs. And obviously more of the Case B24 pack. But I will think about what I'm going to do for the next 2 Sundays. I think it'll be neat to get into one of the 24-hour rations and just finish out the month with that. But I want to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. And for those that could not watch all the way through, if you want to catch the replay, as soon as YouTube makes the replay available, you can hit on that and watch more of it. And I hope you enjoyed this look at one of my favorite US MRE menus. Again, thanks to Cuz for the super chat. Thanks for watching, and catch you on the flip side.